show all about writers and writing as we take up our quills. Let's meet our scribblers in fine feathers. It's Lou Sanders. Ruffling a few feathers, it's Tom Allen. Knock me down with a feather, it's Jimmy Carr. Always tickling our fancy. Alan Davis! Right. Let's get writing. Lou goes.
That's nice.
Tom goes. Jimmy goes. And Alan goes. If you want to take notes, your own quill pens are on your desk, but why don't we tend to use them anymore?
Does anyone use a pen anymore? I don't even use a pen.
Do you not?
When did you last write something down? You type it.
Also, my mum is allergic to feathers. And
Is she? She
yeah.
couldn't have written anything.
There used to be a name for that. That was called being illiterate.
Ah,
No.
that's my dad. My mum can actually write and read.
They were the writing instrument of choice for almost 1,500 years, but they required a lot of upkeep. So basically, not very efficient. You could write maybe 3 or 4 letters at a time, and then you'd run out of ink, and they regularly needed sharpening. So the pen part of a penknife... Anybody know where the word pen in penknife comes from?
Oh, from sharpening pens.
Yes, and it comes from penna, which is Latin for feather. So that is why we call it a penknife.
Oh, did you hear that? There was a lovely... Oh. I'm going to tell that to someone in a pub.
So, in order to make a quill pen, what you're going to have to do, first of all...
You're going to have to catch a bird.
Yes. It has to be a feather from a live bird, is the first thing. And then there's a hierarchy of quills. So, Jimmy, you've got the goose.
Is that like an everyday...
It is, I'm afraid. It's
working
common.
pen?
Common a garden, that one.
When you say a live bird, it's not... Is it live for long? I mean, do you...
Yeah. I mean, once you've plucked a bird's feather, it will grow back. It'll take about a year, probably, for it to grow back again.
So ye olde W.H. Smiths would have been just a bunch of birds and you're plucking feathers out one at a time.
Well,
and going, I'll be back in a year for a refill.
There was a real problem in the 19th century. They began to experience a real shortage of quills. Why might that be?
Oh, avian flu or something. Was it?
No, just more people could read and write, darling.
Amazing.
Very dark mind, Tom, very dark.
You said earlier that you could write 3 letters and then you'd have to dip again.
You'd have to dip again.
Is that why Shakespeare was so good? Because he really had to think about stuff?
Yeah.
Whereas now, you know, Da Vinci Code, they can just crack it out.
I think that's why some books are just overlong, because people think, oh, it's fine, I can just write 1,000,000 words, and it wasn't so well thought out.
Is that a Dickens quote? I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have the time.
I didn't have time, yeah, absolutely, because it means you have to think.
That was the noise again. I made them do the noise.
They were just startled, Jimmy, that you knew something. So,
I read a really interesting thing that Clive James wrote about typewriters. He said about the noise that writing used to make. So when he wrote his first memoir, he wrote it on a typewriter. It was a terrific racket all day long.
it was a phenomenal noise.
Ping
yeah.
every line.
And I still, that's a sign of my age, because I still do that when I'm
Really?
writing.
On an iPad, you'll do that?
Yeah, I know, it's very annoying.
I would like to have that effect when I press return, that it goes
Ting.
ting.
Do you
Just
think-
so other people on the train in the quiet carriage would be
You know, when you hear people on their phone and they haven't turned the keypad tones on?
Yes. Oh, it's so endearing, isn't
Oh,
it?
that was a good noise as well.
I just say to them, you know you can turn that off, don't you?
Do you? Are
Yeah.
you bold
Do you?
like that?
Yeah, I just say, do you want me to do it for you?
Throw the phone at
Yeah.
Now, you've got a crow feather.
Oh, thanks.
These were for artistic people. They were specifically for drawing thin lines. So you might be doing an architectural drawing or some such thing.
You might be drawing my body. It's thin, you get it?
You've got a swan quill.
Oh,
And
lovely.
that's only the best. So Elizabeth
you.
the First, she preferred swan. But the everyday one, Thomas Jefferson kept his own geese.
I was so pleased when I got given this, and now I feel like,
Jimmy?
No, you're right-handed.
Yeah, I'm right-handed, yeah.
You would need a quill from a left wing if you are right-handed, because you don't want the feather to be hitting you in the
That
face.
must have been awful then if they weren't killing the birds and they were just bald on one side. Just flying in circles going, well, this one still works.
If bald eagles lose a feather on one wing, they will shed it on the same one on the other side. Why might they do that?
Fashion.
So wait, so you pull out one, they pull out the other. That's fascinating.
Yeah, but what's that, though? What's that?
It's a seagull going to the library.
They're coming back from the library.
Oh, sorry.
Sandy, I have a question.
Darling.
I mean, it's all very well talking about feathers. Why didn't they just sharpen a stick?
It has like a little reservoir inside it.
That's where the ink goes.
The ink can go inside, whereas the stick less successful. And in fact, one of the sort of forerunners of the fountain pen, they worked out that they could have a little steel holder, and you could actually cut one of these into 5 or 6 little nibs, and then we eventually get to the fountain pen. But there are some advantages to the quill because it can hold certain inks which would clog a fountain pen, like India ink, for example. Now, goose feathers are still used. For what purpose might you still use a goose feather?
I've got that as well.
Pillows and duvets.
Pillows and duvets.
Pillows and duvets.
Thank you. What is this game? There are no rules.
It's lawless.
Absolute Wild West here.
What else?
A goose himself or herself are using the feathers.
No, it's not one of the answers we had thought of, but yes, goose feathers still weirdly in use by the geese.
Fashion.
Fashion. No, so sport.
Oh. Archery.
Shuttlecocks.
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 That was absolutely enormous. Look out! Look out! The Giants are playing on the next court!
Has to be made, a shuttlecock, from the left wing of a goose in order that it spins clockwise when it is struck. What?
This is a great show. I'm learning.
The name Federer, like in, as in Roger Federer.
Greatest ever tennis player.
Yeah. OK, his name means one who trades in quills. So really, he should have been a badminton player. Would have been much better.
Oh, does he know?
I bet he'd pick it up, wouldn't he, badminton?
Do you think?
Yeah, probably.
You've wasted your life, Roger.
The real money's in badminton.
Now, pens poised for the next question. What do you think these Q words mean?
Quackawodger.
Yeah, what do you reckon?
Is that somebody who can't pronounce their R's properly asking Roger to hurry up? Quackawodger.
Jonathan Ross asking Roger Federer to hurry up.
Quackawodger. They'll be here in a minute. Yeah.
Sounds like a thing you do.
Yes, it is sort of a thing you do. You know those wooden puppets that you get, the ones with the strings?
Oh, yes.
So it's the person pulling the strings. But it became a name for politicians who one presumed were having their strings pulled by somebody else.
God, there are so many of them, aren't there?
But that's a great word, isn't it?
Shits.
You quackawodger.
I don't think it would gain you any points, though, would it, in the House of Commons if you stood up and went, you are a quackawodger!
Right, next one. Let's have a look. Who's got a pick? Lou.
Quick sticks.
Quick sticks.
I think that's early onset erections. And that happens all the time when I walk into a room.
Early onset.
6:30 in the evening. Oh, my God, already.
It means hurry up, doesn't it? Quick sticks.
It just means right away.
Chop, chop.
Doesn't Mary Poppins say it?
I see, Mary Poppins, I remember
It's just
saying
quick
it.
sticks, I think.
Yeah, that's what she's talking about.
I love that film. I think it's great. The original. I'm talking about the original.
I haven't seen the new one.
Have you not? It's just not Julie Andrews. So what can I say?
I know, and I quite fancy Emily Blunt, and you're not supposed to fancy Mary Poppins.
No, that's very bad.
Quite wrong.
You get a quick sticks around Mary Poppins.
Quick sticks around Emily Blunt.
I
no
know.
mistake.
In the 1940s, it was criminal slang for, you know, escaping from the police.
That sounds so innocent, doesn't it? What a wonderful time that must have been like. Come on, lads, quick sticks.
The old Bill.
The old Bill's coming.
You and I would be marvellous in one of those films.
Oh, a lovely Ealing comedy.
Jimmy, what's going to pick here?
Quake buttock is the old English term for twerking.
Is it something to do with being nervous or...?
Yeah, it is coward. It's literally shaking in your ass. It's
It's a coward.
It's a coward.
A quacker watcher
Quake-
and a quake butter.
Yes, exactly. Poltroon is also a coward, a dastard.
Poltroon?
A poltroon,
Oh,
yeah.
it's a great word, isn't
It's
it?
a great word.
Poltroon.
Comes from an Italian word for sluggard, lazy person. And dastard, I love. Somebody who's cowardly, acts in an underhand manner.
It's more than cowardly, though, isn't it? It's sneaky.
Underhand. It's really an underhand thing, yeah. What else have we got?
Quaff-tied. Something to do with finishing your drink, I imagine.
It is, well, time for a drink.
Oh, I thought it was the dirty stuff that's left in the bath after a festival.
Quaff-tied.
So half of it is Danish, which half?
Tide?
Quaff?
Tide. Tide. So Danish word for time is tid. So when we say time and tide waits for no man, it's really redundant because tide means time.
Do we get an awful lot of the nautical terms from you Viking people?
Yes, we've been busy. But we also bring you philosophical things, like the concept of dreaming is a Scandinavian idea.
Really?
Yeah.
What did we do before we knew you?
Just slept.
And now we wake up screaming.
So the quaff part comes from Irish Gaelic and probably means cup. So time for your cup or time for your drink. It's a lovely word which I think we should bring back. I think we've got one left up there. Quench coal.
So putting out a fire.
Yeah, so it's an obsolete word for something that puts out a fire, but it was used sort of figuratively. So somebody would put out any wonderful thoughts you might be
damp
having.
rag,
Like a fun sponge.
It is. When you're passionate about something, nobody should try and quench coal it. Nobody should try and put out the passion that you have.
Oh, I mean, if somebody said that to me, it would really quench cold my whole quick sticks.
OK, that's a few of our favourite Q words, but where might you be well advised to skip the queue?
Well, they don't like to queue in France.
Or Italy.
Or Italy.
They're really,
So-
very pushy, especially the elderly in Italy.
Yeah.
Right.
They burrow in, the little Italian women, they burrow right into the heart of the queue and then you can't get them out. They're in the front.
I like that. A tiny Italian woman just pushing by everyone to the front. I go, good.
Yeah, scusi, 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 scusi. And then she's at the front and no one knows how to stop her.
She's not got long left. I think they should be allowed to go to the front.
Yeah, she's gonna die.
People with kids should be right at the back. They've got ages.
Yeah.
Maybe they should just do queuing by longevity. How long do you think you've got?
You shouldn't queue in hospital. Well, my friend skipped the queue, but she'd cut her finger off, so they were like, yeah, come to the front.
Yes, that's quite a serious thing, isn't it?
Well, as well, because when they come out and go, who's next? She was not in a position to go like...
So it's not actually about queuing in terms of a physical queue. It's about the letter Q.
The letter Q.
Yes, you were right. Yes.
The surname Smith. You don't need a queue in that. Skip it. I just give myself 10 points there.
Are there some languages where there isn't a queue?
Well, the letter Q was actually banned in Turkey until 2013, along with two other letters, the X and the W.
It's a language thing.
It is a language thing, darling. But the real issue is that the Turkish language doesn't use the letter Q, but the Kurdish one does. And there was a lot of anti-Kurdish sentiment in Turkey, and so those letters were not allowed to appear in official documents, and people were not allowed to use them when naming their children. Until the early 1990s, it was illegal in Turkey for the 15 to 20 million Kurds, you're talking about 20% of the population, to use any Kurdish at all in public. And it was only since 2013 that you are actually allowed to use the letter Q once more in Turkey.
In Turkey, would they not have quavers then?
Well, that's why there's been an outcry.
Yeah.
People are a little bit annoyed about the sort of repression of the Kurdish people, but mainly
Quavers.
those lovely cheesy snacks.
The earliest version of a Q is Phoenician. It was known as the quaff. It dates from about 10,000 BC. Quaff is thought to have meant monkey. I think the idea is that the top bit is a sort of face and then that's the tail of the monkey. Although this is how unsure we are. Another theory is that it's a sewing needle. And actually we have kind of similar things now. You know the @ sign. In Dutch, that's known as the monkey's tail. It is called Eppensjater. And then the Klammeraf in German, which is the spider or the hanging monkey.
What's the name for the @ sign? There must be a fancy word.
I think people just call it the @ sign. In Danish, it's called snabel, which means elephant's trunk.
Oh, I thought it meant snail, which would make perfect sense.
No, but it kind of looks like an elephant's trunk, do you not think?
Have you ever seen an elephant bend its trunk behind itself?
By lots and lots of counts, Q is the least common letter in the English language, and actually, we don't really need it at all.
Are you saying this whole series is a waste of time? So this series could just be called I?
Well, it could be called KW. Would make the same sound, wouldn't it?
Oh, yes.
Qu-
Yeah, like
sound.
Quick Fit. They must be Turkish.
Yeah. The Romans themselves seem to be aware that the Q wasn't really necessary. So in 90 AD, a Roman emperor stated that the letter Q was redundant except for the purpose of attaching vowels to itself, and his name was...
Quinton.
Quintilian.
But then you'd have to have the KE too.
You'd have to have KW.
The Queen would be KWWE. I don't think people would go with it.
No, I don't think it's going to go.
Try and stop the English using the Q, you'll have a fight on your hands.
There's lots of languages without it. Estonian, Icelandic, Latvian, Polish, Slovenian. Denmark abolished the Q from native words, 1872.
Oh, why?
I just didn't need it. The Danes are very kind of organised. We have a word enkelt, which doesn't really translate into English, and it means beautiful through simplicity. And I think we just thought, that's not enkelt enough, we'll just get rid of it. We're just not necessary.
Oh, that's a lovely...
Why they do so many killings there?
You do a lot of killings, and you know you do.
Now, I'm going to play the sound of someone typing. What do you think they are trying to say?
We don't know any Shakespeare. We're only monkeys.
So why might we know, just from the sound, what somebody is actually trying to say?
Do they have a slightly different pitch, all of the buttons?
Yeah, so it's the QWERTY keyboard, and it can be translated, if you like, to work out what we are typing. If you had just a microphone, hackers would be able to discover your logins, your password, any other confidential information that you might be typing, because each key hits a different part of the keyboard's underplate, and there is a slightly different sound for every single one. And there's an algorithm which can be used to work out which sound corresponds with which letter.
Jimmy looks worried.
I'm going to have to learn to write again. Presumably, for each keyboard, it would be different.
Well, you just need 10 minutes with one keyboard with a microphone.
Is this for a typewriter or for a keyboard?
For a computer keyboard. Computer scientists at the University of California in Berkeley estimate hackers would need 10 minutes and they could crack anybody's computer code.
What about an iPad?
I don't think it would work on that, but it would work on a
Do
computer...
your dirty work on an iPad, Jimmy.
My dirty work.
And now I imagine that dirty work is Jimmy's password.
What is it about boys? Because you don't type with two hands like that. Every time I'm on a train, there's some boy typing and he's doing this.
Yeah.
Mavis Deacon did me proud, that little typing thing.
You learn to type.
Oh, yeah.
When I was at school, we were all taught to type, and they used to tie an apron to the top of the typewriter and then round your neck, and then so you had to type underneath the apron so you couldn't see.
At the
what you were
boys' school, Sandy, you're taught to dictate.
I think the key part of that word is dick.
That was very good. Could you just take that down for us?
We can actually reveal, Alan, what was being typed. Alan.
Say... blue... now. Or 100 point. Blue whale.
Yeah, it's too late now. There was an astonishing statistician in the early 1900s called Roger Babson, and he came up with a rather odd typing innovation. He suffered from TB, and he believed that fresh air was going to be the answer to him and his condition. So his entire office was so flooded with fresh air. He always had the windows open, and all his staff, female, obviously, they wore hooded onesies. Oh. It looks like The Handmaid's Tale, doesn't it? And then he got them to type. But if you look, can you see the woman? She was so cold that she had to use little hammers in order to type. See the little hooked hammers there?
Wow.
And apparently she got up to a very good speed
Was
with
he a
them.
member of KKK or not?
Only comparatively recently, the men have typed at all. Do we know why?
Sometimes men have bigger fingers. I actually don't. I was blessed with a narrow wrist. Very dainty finger. But men sometimes have wider fingers, or especially if you see like a man who works in the garden who has very big fingers.
Tell me more about this guy in the garden.
Those mellers.
No, it's nothing to do with that. The very first mass-produced typewriters, they advertised them showing women using them. The idea was this machine is so simple, even a woman can use it. And men did not want to be emasculated by being seen to do typing. And then it generally was agreed in offices. Women would spell and type better, they would raise the tone of the office, and then they would marry and leave and not require a pension.
Well, if you watch those things like Mad Men, if you watch kind of anything set back then, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, when I very first started at the BBC, so we're talking about the early 1980s, no man typed. All the men were producers. There was a big pool of secretaries, and the men would speak into a dictaphone and the women would type it up, so there was no typing done by men at all.
I'm using a dictaphone. Use your finger like everybody else.
Those buzzers that we played at the very beginning, it's from the Typewriter Symphony. It was actually the theme tune on the news quiz on Radio 4. It still is. A guy called Leroy Anderson, American composer, he wrote it where the typewriter is used as a percussion instrument. It's one of my favourites. Have a quick look at this video. Isn't that wonderful?
That's a guy that forgot his instrument and refused to back down.
It's a trained percussionist who does it. They slightly cheat. They modify the typewriter so only 2 keys are working. So otherwise you'd get it jammed, wouldn't you, if you played like that? I absolutely love it. Now, on to a question about spy novels. What was the name of James Bond's gadget expert?
Q.
Q. No, in the films, but not in the novels. Q does not appear in...
But you know there are James Bond films.
Yes.
And he's called Q in them,
yes,
so
but
it's
in
sort
the,
of right, isn't it?
But in the original novels, only the Q branch is mentioned. And in the question, I did ask about the spy novels.
That's the problem. I don't listen.
No, because you're a man and you're too busy dictating.
So Q, the character Q, is thought to be based on a real inventor called Charles Fraser Smith, and he worked for the clothing department of the Ministry of Supply. Of course, his real job was coming up with gadgets for the Secret Service. They were called Q gadgets after the World War I Q ships. So these were warships which were disguised as freighters, and they got their name from their home port, Queenstown, in Ireland. And they looked like a perfectly ordinary freighter, and they had cargo and all that kind of thing. In fact, it was to lure U-boats up to the surface, and as soon as the U-boat came up, they would reveal their unbelievable armaments. I mean, unbelievably brave work. 44 Q ships were destroyed, but they also managed to destroy 15 U-boats. So that is where the Q thing comes from. It comes from these Q ships. This is Desmond Llewellyn. He was the very first Q in the films, showing some of the devices. But Fraser Smith's own devices include a map, saw and compass hidden inside a hairbrush. Who doesn't want one of those?
Oh, yeah, that would stick out with me, I think.
The best one was the man with the golden gun. He gives him a fake nipple.
And what was the...
Well, because Scaramanga, who's like the super baddie in the movie, has 3 nipples, but no one knows it's him, so James Bond has to pretend to be him. So they give him... Here's your gadget for the film. It's a fake nipple.
This is a genuine one. He designed a pipe which could be smoked without ruining the map, which was hidden inside the bowl. But he did this by lining the pipe with asbestos. And he created a map of invisible ink which was able to be seen by dousing it in the only liquid you'd always have to hand.
Urine.
Urine, absolutely right. And he also came up with the idea of developing garlic-infused chocolate bars for British agents so that when they dropped into France, they would smell convincingly. What's the least plausible gadget from a James Bond film that you can think of?
Wasn't there an invisible car at one point?
Yeah. My favourite is a submarine in the shape of an alligator. In Octopussy. There was Dentonite, which was explosive toothpaste, a ski pole rocket launcher, and bagpipes flamethrower. That is very good. Actually, Ian Fleming had his own sort of Bond-like gadget. When he finished Casino Royale, he was so pleased he had a gold-plated typewriter made for himself. And his nephew, Fergus Fleming, said that his literary acquaintances considered it the height of vulgarity.
Not least because he was the only man who could type. Doing Ian.
I love, love, love the music to James Bond. Let's have a quick listen to the original James Bond theme. The composer is a man called Monty Norman, and it actually comes from a song about a man with an unlucky sneeze, which he reworked into the James Bond theme. It was originally called Bad Sign, Good Sign, and it didn't sound at all like the original song. Have a listen to this.
Could I have some onion barges, please?
I was born with this unlucky sneeze, and what is worse, I came into the world the wrong way round.
Okay.
Oh, this is surely bullshit.
This is true. V.S. Naipaul's novel, A House for Mr. Biswas, is a wonderful novel, and Mr. Biswas has a terrible sneeze, and it's unlucky for him. And Monty Norman wrote a musical version of this, which was not a huge success. He was later hired to write the music for the first Bond film, which was Dr. No. He reworked the theme tune into the James Bond theme tune. So we thought we'd do a bit of, I'm going to call it karaoke, because it starts with a Q. We're going to try and see if we can sing the original James Bond theme tune. So the words are going to come up on the screen for you. Let's go. I was born with this unlucky sneeze, and what is worse, I came into the world the wrong way round. It's all agree that I'm the reason why my father fell into the village pond and drowned.
No. You know what? I now don't believe you when you say it wasn't a huge hit.
Yeah.
Now I can't understand.
I'd
Never
rather
mind.
watch that than James Bond.
He fell into the village pond and drowned.
It's a very sad story.
Is it a true story?
No.
We've been expecting you, Mr. Bond. We heard you sneezing all the way down the corridor.
And the pond needs to
bloody
clear
hay
out.
My name is Pond.
James
Bond.
Bond.
Anyway, here is my next question. What would you find in Mrs. Q's memoirs?
I like the image you've used, by the way, that you think a key might be needed to undo a piece of string.
Well, it is possibly the key to her heart, my darling.
You don't know about love, do you?
I've never experienced it. Well, I joke. I've had a lot of love on very short-term bases.
My dressing room door is always open.
And mine has a key. So, early 19th century, Mrs. Q...
Mrs. Q's memoirs. Was it a fake name for someone with a salacious memoir?
It was a woman called Harriet Wilson. She was a courtesan.
I love that. We say sex worker now.
So she started her career at aged 15 as a mistress of Lord Craven, and she took lots of lovers. Some people say the Prince Regent. We have no evidence for that. When she announced that she was going to write her memoirs, she said any concerned gentleman could pay £200 to avoid being written about. Among those that she wrote to and said, do you want me to leave you out, was Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington, who rather famously said, publish and be damned. She was 10th out of 15 children, and 3 of her sisters also became courtesans. Fanny was the first to take up the trade.
Wow.
Just saying. I love this. She took up the trade with a man called Mr. Trench, and when her sisters asked why, she replied, I refused him the whole of the first day. Had I done so the second, he would have been in a fever. So, published in 1825, it was 4 volumes, and it was,
Wow.
I mean, unbelievably popular. So popular, a barrier had to be set up outside the publishers' offices, and the publishers and Wilson went on to make £10,000, which at the time was an enormous amount of money. It has the great opening line, these memoirs, I shall not say how and why I became, at the age of 15, the mistress of the Earl of Craven. It's a fantastic opening. Anybody think of a book that kind of mirrors this situation recently?
Well, I suppose Stormy Daniels.
Stormy Daniels, absolutely. She said that, of course, that Donald Trump had paid to keep their affair secret.
I've not read the book. I've watched a lot of her films, but... a couple of similar areas.
The chapter concerning Trump begins, OK, so did you just skip to this chapter? What she says is, my life is a lot more interesting than an encounter with Donald Trump, but I get it. Still, of all the people who I had sex with, why couldn't the world obsess over one of the hot ones? And then she went on tour, Make America Horny Again.
She's working as a stand-up comedian now.
Really?
Yeah.
She's funny. She's funny.
Most controversial book in history of, what should we call it, adult literature?
Would it be Lady Chatterley's Lover?
It would absolutely. In 1960, was prosecuted under the 1959 Obscene Publications Act.
Presumably those memoirs had very salacious bits within them.
I think it was really more socially shocking, Lady Chatterley's Lover, because you have an upper-class woman having an affair with a working-class man, and that was just seen as completely...
Disgusting.
I've always thought the class thing in those kind of books is interesting. Like, if you look at 50 Shades of Grey, if that was a working-class guy driving a van that was doing all that, it'd be a very different book.
Yeah.
He's a billionaire being
Yeah.
awful to her. You go, oh, he's very rich, though. He's got
If
a
he was
helicopter.
doing it all whilst he was driving the van, that really...
That would be interesting. In Lady Chatterley's Lover, in the case, the defence prosecutor, Mervyn Griffiths-Jones, pleaded with jurors, is it a book that you would wish your wife or your servants to read?
He really had his finger on the pulse, didn't he?
Yeah. The jury returned not guilty and sales absolutely soared.
Ooh, the best bit of publicity they could have asked for,
Oh,
surely.
darling. 3 million books in 3 months. It was absolutely
Wow.
fantastic. In fact, in America, they used to have a phrase, banned in Boston. So Boston was seen as a rather puritanical city. And if you wrote banned in Boston across the book, it helped sell it enormously. Seen as an immoral work.
Wow.
Now, from one form of artistic expression to another, what is the most disgusting panel you can think of?
Oh, goodness, I'd forgotten about that picture. It does look like I'm sort of merging into Alan.
I'd like to take a moment, Sandy, to
Yes.
thank you for the nasal trimmers you got me for Christmas.
It does look like you're saying, like, look, I've got nothing up my nose, OK?
So it's the letter Q. We are looking for what else might you have in a...
I'm absolutely stumped, actually, Sandy.
OK, yep, so the answer is quilts.
Quilts?
Quilts, yeah.
Oh, well, we were never going to get quilts.
But I think that is the point of the programme.
Well, then we did really well.
Yes, you did very well. There's a woman called Anna Dimitriou. She was the 2018 president of the Science and Arts section of the British Science Association, and she made a quilt where every panel was impregnated with MRSA bacteria. Now, of course, she'd heavily treated it, so it wasn't going to kill you to actually hold the quilt up. It is Staphylococcus aureus bacteria, so MRSA is the deadly strain of this, and what she was trying to do was to highlight the problem of antibiotic resistance.
Ooh.
Unpleasantly, I think. She got the bacteria out of her own nose and grew it on the quilt.
We did that to the Native Americans, didn't we? We gave them quilts with smallpox.
You're right, they did give out blankets infected with smallpox in order to subdue, they called it, the Native American
What
population.
point was she making with this?
She's just trying to show us the real issue that we're having at the moment with antibiotic resistance.
Someone told me, the problem isn't us taking antibiotics when we feel poorly. The problem is, if you eat a piece of meat...
Yeah.
They've been pumped so full of antibiotics so as
Yeah.
not to get ill that it's in all of us anyway.
Yeah.
And
That's
in
the
milk,
real issue.
it's in milk, it's in
Yeah,
everything.
it is. I mean, we have far too much exposure to antibiotics. Don't take them, as it were, willy-nilly.
Don't take them willy-nilly. It's
No.
very painful.
Yeah, I believe so.
Nil by Willie.
In fact, the whole thing about making quilts and so on goes much further. So during various wars in the 19th century, it was very common for soldiers to make rather intricate quilts, often made from scraps of uniform. They were known as convalescence quilts. And some of the most complex examples have up to 25,000 pieces of fabric in them. When I was a child, duvets were called continental quilts. Does anybody remember this? Continental
I
quilts?
remember them
remember- I
starting.
remember.
I just remember going to a hotel and it didn't have sheets and blankets. And we really didn't know what to do with that film. Tuck it in, now it's going to fall. And some of them did fall off. They'd slide
yeah,
straight off you.
They first came to Britain in about 1964, and it was Habitat who advertised them, saying that you could make a bed so quickly, just a few shakes, that even a man could do it.
And how wrong they were, because getting that cover on...
Yeah, this is what we're going to do. So, you've each got a quilt and a cover.
Right?
Oh.
So we're going to have a very quick competition
Couldn't be easier.
to see who can be quickest.
Hang on. I haven't undone the bow yet. I haven't got my
Okay,
key.
get your quilt out. We're going to do it all at the same time.
Wait.
Okay, ready?
Is everybody...
I
Hang
can't
on.
find
Yeah,
the
yeah.
opening, Sandy.
Hang on, can we open it? Where do we start from?
Can't find my thing.
OK, ready? 1, 2, 3,
No,
go!
I'm not ready, I'm not ready. I'm nowhere near ready. Oh, my God. No, I can't do it.
Hang on, mine's buttoned up.
Go, they've got it!
Hang on. Mine's buttoned up. Yours didn't have buttons on it. Mine's buttoned up. That's not fair.
Jimmy!
Yes.
He has staff to do it for
Are you
him.
all right? Mind your hair.
What happened? I think it's all right. I did, yeah. I mean,
Jimmy,
wow.
Wow. I think I'm not the only one who's amazed it stayed on.
We specially got a duvet cover for you with blue whales on. We were very pleased. Are you all right, sweetheart? So I think, no question about it, Lou was the winner there. It was absolutely fantastic. Now, put your security blankets away because it's time for the round that we call General Ignorance. Fingers on buzzers, please. What happens to Dr. Jekyll's trousers when he becomes Mr. Hyde?
They rip, don't they?
No, they don't rip. Why do they not rip?
Because he's not the Hulk.
He gets smaller. He becomes smaller and kind of hunched in like a beast.
Yeah, so they should fall down is the answer,
Yeah.
because in the book, Edward Hyde is much smaller than Dr. Jekyll. The reason for his short stature is he represents Dr. Jekyll's evil side, so the bit that he's been trying to suppress as he lives as decently and as morally as he can. It's the films and the TV that show him as big, more like the Incredible Hulk.
And the Hulk is based on that, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And Robert Louis Stevenson's tale was inspired by a man called Deacon Brodie. He lived in 18th century Edinburgh, and by day he was the most marvellous, respectable cabinet maker, lock maker, member of the town council. By night, he used the keys that he made to break into their homes and steal their stuff. This is him with his accomplice, George Smith.
Ooh, I think
George
you'd stick out the fact that he was a chicken.
Anyway, Robert Louis Stevenson had a wardrobe as a child at the end of his bed, which had been made by Deacon Brodie. So it's probably how he came to have the idea in the first place. And Brodie was eventually hanged, although the story is that he wore a steel band around his neck and escaped and went to Paris to live out his life.
I like the idea that you would be hung and they would go, well, don't look, we're hanging him, and just look the other way.
Yeah.
Where's the body gone? Oh, I don't know.
I don't know what happened.
He must have buried himself, I suppose.
Yeah. Anyway, who wrote this rhyme? The Queen of Hearts, she made some tarts upon a summer's day. The Knave of Hearts, he stole those tarts and took them clean away.
Beyonce.
It's Lewis Carroll. Again? I think I was quite relatively intelligent.
So it was popularised by Lewis Carroll, but it was not written by him. It was first published in 1782, so Lewis Carroll's work doesn't come out till 1865. There are actually some additional verses about the King of Spades, the King of Clubs and the Diamond King. They've actually been forgotten, I think because they're rather ruder than the verses about the germ tarts. The King of Hearts beats the knave until he gives the tarts back. The King of Spades kills the maids, while the Knave of Clubs gives winks and rubs.
It was a different time.
It was. It is an amazing book, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Never been out of print. It celebrated its 150th birthday in 2015. Lots of working titles for it. He had Alice's Adventures Underground, Alice Among the Fairies, Alice's Hour in Elfland. They're rather nice, aren't they? Finally, what colour is the Emerald City?
I think I know a weird fact about The Wizard of Oz, which
Yes.
I didn't realise until recently, which is that it's an allegory for America. The farmers are the straw man and they need a brain, and industry was the tin man and industry doesn't have a heart.
Wow.
And the lion was the politicians and that they didn't have any courage.
You're absolutely right. But it's not what we were looking for. We were looking for the colour.
Well, is the answer green, then? Oh, damn it! I knew something! I knew something!
Yes.
Emerald. Yes. Yellow.
Brown.
No.
Red.
Stop naming colours.
Blue. Teal.
When she first goes to the City of Oz, she is told she must don a pair of protective glasses in order to avoid being blinded by the brightness.
Silver.
I have that when I have laser on my Jack and Danny. They make you wear glasses.
On your what?
What?
Jack and Danny.
Jack and Danny.
Jack and Danny, Fanny.
Sorry, it's called a Jack... What is...
A Jack and Danny.
They make you put the glasses on.
No, wait.
Ah. Also,
Jack and Danny.
my mum doesn't like me doing rude stuff, and she's really pleased I was going to be on QI.
Right.
And now she's not going to be pleased anymore. She's going to be very embarrassed in front of the gardening club, of course, again.
Speaking of the gardening club, you had all downstairs.
I did not know. It's rhyming slang, is it, Jack and Danny? Who knew?
For Fanny, yeah.
My favourite when I was growing up was always called a fine china.
Oh.
Oh, is that your...
Because you get it out for special occasions.
Exactly right,
Back to the Wizard of Oz. What we learn from the wizard at the end is that he makes everybody wear green spectacles so that things appear green. And when she asks if that means everything isn't really green, he replies, "No more so than any other city, but my people have worn green glasses on their eyes so long that most of them think it really is an emerald city." There is a city in America which is known as the Emerald City. It's Seattle. It's a beautiful place that's surrounded by water and evergreen forests. Have you been to Seattle?
I've been.
You must have played there, Dan.
Yeah, I played there last year. It was an amazing place to do a gig as well. It's incredible. There in Portland, just incredible. I played a place in Portland when I was last there, the Aladdin Theatre. And I said, "Oh, anything interesting about the theatre?" And they went, "Oh, yeah, it used to be a cinema." He said, "We showed one film here for 20 years."
No.
I said...
What was it?
I said, "Was it Deep Throat?"
No, it wasn't.
And the guy said to me, he said, "Don't put a blue light on in there."
Everything looks green when viewed through emerald-tinted glasses. And there goes the bell for the end of the school day. Before we leave for playtime, let's have a look at your report cards. In first place tonight... Well, this is astonishing. With a full 5 points, it's Alan. In second place with -6, it's Lou. Third place with -13, Jimmy!
Very respectable.
Fabulous fourth with -26, it's Tom! Thanks to our guests, Tom, Jimmy, Lou and Alan. And I leave you with this quick quotation from the quill of American author Robert Benchley. "It took me 15 years to discover that I had no talent for writing, but I couldn't give it up because by that time I was too famous. Goodbye."